Welcome to Global News on Signature TV. I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. In the headlines, Tinubu reverses Miriam Sanders' pardon, reduces sentence to 12 years. Members of the House of Representatives approves President Tinubu's request for $2.3 billion foreign loan. South Korea's Lee meets Canadian Prime Minister Carney ahead of APEC summit. And China hopes United States will stick to moratorium on nuclear arms testing. Details shortly.
As the day breaks, as the newspaper headlines trail the stories that shape the day, we at Signature TV.
Tinubu has reversed the presidential pardon granted to Miriam Sanders, who was convicted for killing her husband, Bilyaminu Bello, in Abuja. An official statement by the President's Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, said her sentence was reduced from death to 12 years imprisonment on compassionate grounds. Onanuga stated that the gesture was based on the recommendation of the Presidential Advisory Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy, chaired by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi. He added that certain persons convicted of serious crimes such as kidnapping, drug-related offenses, human trafficking, fraud, unlawful possession of firearms, and arms dealing, among others, were removed from the list. The action, he said, became necessary in view of the seriousness and security implications of some of the offenses, the need to be sensitive to the feelings of the victims of the crimes and society in general, and the need to boost the morale of law enforcement agencies and adherence to bilateral obligations. Meanwhile, a legal practitioner and an analyst, Frank Tietie, has said that once the president grants pardon, he cannot take it back. Tietie made this known in an interview on Wednesday while reacting to President Bola Tinubu's reversal of pardon granted to convicts of various crimes. He argued that a truly responsive president would have reversed the fuel subsidy removal and tariff hike, noting that once the initial list was signed, it became final and irreversible. According to him, the president lacks the authority to convict or withdraw a pardon, as such powers belong solely to the judiciary. The House of Representatives has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to raise $2.347 billion from the international capital markets to part finance the 2025 budget deficit and refinance maturing euro bonds. Lawmakers also approved the issuance of a debut sovereign sukuk of up to $500 million. The approval followed the adoption of the report of the Committee on AIDS, Loans and Debt Management, which includes implementation of a new external borrowing plan of 1.84 trillion naira to part finance the 9.27 trillion naira budget deficit.
The House and the Committee of Supply considered the report of the Committee on AIDS, Loans and Debt Management on the request to implement new external borrowing in the 2025 Appropriation Act. So doing, approved recommendations 1 to 4 of the report. Is to present for confirmation by the House of Representatives the appointment of Lieutenant General O. Oluyede as Chief of Defense Staff. In compliance with the provisions of Section 18, subsection 1 of the Armed Forces Act, Cap A20, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, I'm pleased to present for confirmation by the House of Representatives the 4 nominees listed below as service chiefs of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Earlier, Speaker Abbas Tajuddin read a letter from President Tinubu seeking confirmation of newly appointed service chiefs.
The fight against corruption and illicit financial flows remain one of the most defining governance challenges of our time. Mr. Speaker, despite the robust framework provided by the Parliament under Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022, the reality is that significant proceeds of unlawful activities still find ways into our financial and property system through sophisticated method of concealment and layering. This bill, Mr. Speaker, therefore seeks to strengthen the existing anti-money laundering legal framework by introducing a civil recovery mechanism that enables the recovery of unexplained wealth through non-conviction basis proceedings.
This bill, therefore, Mr. Speaker, this bill, therefore, seeks to amend the Constitution to explicitly recognize the local government areas and area councils of the Federal Capital Territory as constituent units of the Federation alongside the federal and state governments, and in particular, sir, to affirm and protect the autonomy of local governments and the area councils.
Also, a bill to amend the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022, scaled second reading. In the same sitting, lawmakers considered a bill to amend the 1999 Constitution to include local government areas and area councils as constituent units of the Federation.
The third fund projects of poor qualities with new completed ones deteriorating faster than projects being built over 60 years ago. Cognizance of the need for the federal government to refurbish the first generation universities in Nigeria, to return to their the glory and investigate the quality of works executed by third funds to justify values for money spent on these projects.
So cognizant that last review of state constituencies in Nigeria by the National Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, in 1998 resulted in the separation of our state constituency. Cognizant of the need to give adequate representation to the people of our state constituency in the Zigawa State House of Assembly.
The House further resolved to investigate the quality and standard of TET fund projects across government-owned universities. The motion, sponsored by Aderemi Oseni, also called for the upgrade of facilities in Nigeria's first-generation universities. In another development, the House adopted a motion by Saidu Miga from Jigawa State, urging INEC to restore the Aujara State constituency in line with constitutional provisions and existing laws. The House of Representatives is moving to modernize Nigeria's system of recording births, deaths, and other vital statistics through a fully digital framework. Lawmakers say the initiative is critical for effective national planning, security, and socio-economic development. Declaring open a public hearing on the bill to repeal and reenact the Births, Deaths, etc. Compulsory Registration Act, Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, represented by Godwin Ofiono, said a technology-driven approach is essential for accurate and timely data collection. He noted that with Nigeria's fast-growing population and rising mobility, there is an urgent need for a modern electronic system that meets United Nations standards and global best practices. Chairman of the House Committee on Population, Odimayo Okunjimi, described the current law as obsolete and incapable of meeting the demands of a digital society. He explained that the proposed legislation seeks to establish a unified national registry to capture births, deaths, marriages, adoptions, and other vital events while improving coordination among the National Population Commission, state registries, and local councils.
Accurate and timely vital statistics are the lifeblood of planning. They underpin national policy in health, education, social protection, security, and economic development. For instance, proper registered birth give a child identity, give a child a right, and also give him access to education and health system, health care. Likewise, the registration of death enable accountability in health system and help government assesses life expectancy and disease trends. In short, when we fail to count people correctly, we fail to serve them effectively.
Stakeholders, including representatives from Algon and UNICEF, commended the proposed reforms, saying they align with international standards and provide a strong legal foundation for efficient civil registration and data management in Nigeria.
Ministry of Interior has practically usurped the function of local government when it comes to conducting marriages and registration of marriage. If you now include the same marriage in the function of NPC, will it not create more problems in an already complicated situation? How do you intend to solve this problem without endless litigations and all that? Because the Constitution is specific, it didn't say "and others." So I see it as it's unfortunate that the local government is always the matching ground. Everybody feels they can encroach, local government cannot do anything. It is very, very unfair. These are some of the constitutional provisions for the local government that give them even a little window to generate some fund. But you find out that it's either the state or the federal, they are usurping, especially in those areas where, practically, Ministry of Interior has taken over marriages. They make a lot of money from it, both from conducting and issuing certificates. So we need to please consider local government and their functions when we do some of these things.
The bill reads, the title of the bill to be revised to Civil Registration Bill. Currently it's reading Birth and Death Bill. We are recommending this to accurately reflect its full scope, which extends beyond the birth and death to include all vital events such as marriages, adoption, and changes of name. This aligns with international best practice and ensures clarity in the law's intent and application. The second, we recommend reinstating Section 26 of the existing Act, which establishes collaboration between health sector and civil registration authority. This will ensure full integration of health data with the National Civil Registration database and critical steps of achieving interoperability, accuracy, and real-time data flow between health and registration systems.
If passed, the new law will replace outdated legislation, create a national digital registry, and strengthen Nigeria's capacity for data-driven governance, national security, and development planning. The reforms are expected to enhance national identity management, improve public service delivery, and support sustainable development across the country. There was a mild drama at the National Assembly as representatives of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, walked out on the House Committee on Basic Education and Examination Bodies during an investigative hearing. The session, chaired by Oboku Ofoji, was convened to review JAMB's 2023-2024 budget performance, remittances, and bank statements. Although the registrar, Professor Ishak Oluyede, was invited to appear in person, he was represented by Muftab Bello, a director at the board. Tension erupted when the JAMB representative requested that journalists be excused from the meeting, citing the sensitive nature of some documents to be presented. The committee declined, insisting that its proceedings were public, prompting Bello and his team to stage a walkout. Chairman Ofoji condemned the action, describing it as unfortunate and unacceptable. he warned that the committee would not tolerate any attempt to obstruct its oversight functions. He further directed the JAMB registrar to appear before the panel with his management team by next Tuesday or face sanctions in line with sections 88 and 89 of the Constitution. Some lawmakers also expressed displeasure over the conduct of the JAMB officials, describing their actions as disrespectful to the legislature.
But one thing the committee will not take from any agency is when the agency refuses to submit documents that were requested by this committee in line with section 88 and 89 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And you refuse to submit those documents, and you think the committee can be cowed, that we will not tolerate it.
The National Assembly has requested that JAMB should furnish us with certain details of the income and expenditure, including whatever sources of revenue that they have gotten, and they chose to walk out on the National Assembly. Then whatever gaze is open to Nigerians.
The House of Representatives has called on the federal government to take urgent steps towards restoring the lost glory of Nigeria's first-generation universities, including Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, the University of Ibadan, and the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, among others. The resolution followed the adoption of a motion sponsored by Aderemi Oseni during Wednesday's plenary session, which received overwhelming support from lawmakers. Oseni noted that the first-generation universities established in the early 1960s once represented the pinnacle of academic excellence, boasting of world-class facilities, highly qualified lecturers, and an environment that attracted global recognition. He noted that decades of neglect, inadequate funding have left the institutions with infrastructure decay and eroded their once enviable status, lamenting that lecture halls, hostels, and auditoriums in these universities have deteriorated. The lawmaker further expressed concern over the poor quality of tertiary education trust fund intervention projects, alleging that many recently completed projects are already showing signs of decay, unlike structures built over 6 decades ago. The House therefore resolves to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the quality and standard of TET fund projects executed in federal universities to ensure value for money and accountability in the use of public funds. Governor Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State has warned that negotiating peace with armed groups while allowing them to retain their weapons undermines state authority and delays lasting stability. Lawal, who stated this during a lecture at the National Institute for Security Studies in Abuja, outlined his administration's security approach, which includes strengthening coordination among security agencies through a unified State Security Council, creating community protection guards, and improving intelligence sharing between local institutions and law enforcement. He said peace committees have also been established in all local government areas to mediate conflict, rebuild trust, and promote community participation in security efforts. According to him, the state's security challenges stem from economic deprivation, arms proliferation, weak traditional structures, and youth unemployment. Lawal added that Zamfara is collaborating with the Office of the National Security Advisor and international partners, including Colombia, on programs aimed at preventing and countering violent extremism. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says present administration is working to secure the lives of both Christians, Muslims, and Nigerians in general. Idris, who was speaking in an interview, noted that Boko Haram extremists target both mosques and churches, adding that reports that only the north is being attacked were false. He said the government acknowledges Nigeria's security challenges, but insists it is working to protect all citizens, regardless of religion. The minister dismissed the claims that only one region or faith is being targeted, noting that extremists have attacked both Christians and Muslims. Idris emphasized that the Constitution guarantees freedom of worship and that Christians and Muslims continue to coexist and work together peacefully. Still to come, NSCDC deploys 10,000 personnel for Anambra governorship poll. Multiple vehicle crash causes gridlock in Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Details of these and more after the break.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Ojukwu, has called on small and medium enterprises in the Southeast to embrace the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme as a pathway to expanding their markets and boosting regional trade. She made the call at a one-day sensitization workshop organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the ECOWAS National Office in Abuja in collaboration with the Enugu State government. Correspondent Chinemerem Ikebunam reports.
It was a gathering of business leaders, policymakers, and entrepreneurs at the International Conference Center in Enugu as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, through his ECOWAS National Unit, convened stakeholders in Enugu for a sensitization workshop. The purpose of the gathering was to enlighten the Southeasterners on the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, a policy aimed at deepening intra-regional trade and empowering businesses across West Africa. Describing the initiative as timely and transformative, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Ojukwu, said the program directly addresses the urgent need for regional integration and market expansion for small and medium-scale enterprises. According to her, the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme opens new markets, enhances access to foreign exchange, and strengthens the competitiveness of local manufacturers within the sub-region. Ojukwu emphasized that SMEs are the true engine of the Nigerian economy, creating jobs, fostering innovation, and driving inclusive growth.
This workshop, therefore, is about democratizing opportunity, equipping SMEs with the knowledge, the skills, and networks to transcend the local boundaries and embrace the wider West African market. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, what we do here today is part of a larger vision. We want to see a West Africa where no region and no entrepreneur is left behind.
The minister also commended Governor Peter Mbah's administration for promoting innovation and enterprise, describing Enugu as a model of how the Southeast can align local dynamics with continental ambition. The Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah, represented by the Deputy Governor of the state, Ifeanyi Osai, applauded the federal government for bringing the initiative to Enugu, but cautioned that regional trade liberalization must be balanced with fair competition.
That brings some other responsibility, which I think the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs will have, and they are better positioned to push at the level of federal government. Because manufacturing and production can't fairly compete if they don't ride on the same horseback of baseline infrastructure, of public works. If you liberalize trade in the sub-region and manufacturers in one country enjoy stable power, enjoy robust road infrastructure, enjoy single-digit interest, as opposed to what is obtainable in another country, the people with all those infrastructure and better interest rate will have advantage in an even platform to trade and compete. So we must not lose sight of the fact that so much work needs to be done.
The president of the Southeast Chamber of Commerce, Humphrey Ngonadi, represented by Dr. Daniel Uchi, pledged to extend the sensitization across all 17 city chambers in the region to ensure wide participation.
During our next council meeting that will be coming up in November, we are going to ensure that whatever information, whatever benefits that the ECOWAS trade liberalization system have, we will pass it using any language we think the business community in Aba, Onitsha, Nnewi, Enugu, Umuahia, Awka, and Nsukka will make sure that they understand this and see how we can key in.
President of the Enugu Chamber of Commerce, Odeiga Jidowo, expressed optimism that the initiative would give Southeast businesses access to ECOWAS markets and hoped that more West African countries will participate in next year's Enugu International Trade Fair.
Our people are resilient and ever willing to increase productivity provided that the markets are accessible and bottlenecks are eliminated.
With growing interest in cross-border trade, the call for SMEs to embrace regional opportunities under the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme may just be the key to unlocking greater opportunities for the Southeast and Nigeria at large. In Enugu, Chinemeremi Kebunam, Signature TV News.
A group of civil society organizations and some government agencies got together in Abuja on Wednesday to assess prospects of Nigeria's future. At the event, which was the 5th National Integrity Summit, the group concluded that for Nigeria to realize its prospects as a great nation, the actions of the leadership and the youth must be guided by integrity. Correspondent Nasiru Usman was at the event and now reports.
The theme of the 5th National Integrity Summit held in Abuja on Wednesday was Building Ethical Leaders for Sustainable Future. Though the focus was on the youth, organizers and speakers at the event seized the occasion to interrogate the integrity credentials of Nigerians' leadership.
We are living in a time when moral values are being tested and leadership integrity is under serious scrutiny. Hence, this gathering is not just a celebration, it is a solemn affirmation of our conviction that integrity remains the foundation upon which great nation and enduring legacies are built.
If you view left and right, there is a queue of Nigeria waiting to be corrupt because there is no guidance, there is no continuous engagement on anti-corruption.
We need to engage stakeholders across board, not only politicians, right? We need to sustain integrity in our religious life, our personal life, and of course, our political systems.
The challenge of ethnicity and religion also came under scrutiny. Awal Ibrahim Musa, country head, Transparency International, said that both ethnic identity and religion belongingness could be moral and integrity assets for leadership recruitment. He, however, regretted that both factors have been robbed of the integrity potentials and turned into instruments for leadership perversion.
Genuine national integration requires leadership committed to justice, meritocracy, and inclusion beyond ethnic or religious boundaries. Tribalism and religious politics are among the most persistent challenges to Nigerian national unity, political stability, and democratic consolidation. Both are deeply rooted in the country's historical evolution, social structure, and political culture.
Kingsley Obi, Deputy Director of Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Offences Commission, ICPC, who represented the chairman, said that the commission has launched Accountability and Corruption Prevention Program for local governments as a means of instituting financial management, transparency, and proactive disclosure at the local government level.
Over the years, we have partnered with NGOs, CSOs, and other stakeholders to inculcate to a large extent a culture of integrity and accountability in public service through initiatives such as Constituent Executive Project Tracking Initiative and National Anti-Corruption Coalition, NSCC, a platform for partnering and collaborating with NGOs. We've been able to improve service delivery and democratic dividends.
The event witnessed the induction of National Youth Service Corps members who had undergone training in the integrity and leadership workshop.
Having a mentor doesn't mean you have to follow your mentor into darkness.
So if your mentor is actually moving in the wrong way, you can divert from that. And so the training was a good one.
Dignitaries at the event included Oparachi Jacob of African Poverty Alleviation Initiative, Dominic Ogaku, President, Civil Society Group for Good Governance, and Daniel Omofowam, Executive Director, African Electoral Integrity Initiative. In Abuja, Nasiru Usman for Signature TV.
A youth-led, non-profit, non-partisan and community-based organization, Catch Them Young Community Initiative, has called for the establishment of an Electoral Offences Commission to prosecute electoral offenders and uphold election integrity. Executive Director of CATYCOI, Comrade Nonso Orakwe, made the call at a forum organized under the Campaign Against Voter Apathy in Awka, the state capital. Orakwe stated that the current laws empowering the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission are insufficient to address electoral fraud, as there are no provisions that hold individuals accountable for electoral offences. Orakwe also called on the federal government to create an independent selection committee to nominate INEC's leadership to the National Assembly to insulate them from political influence. He recommended that all post-election disputes be concluded before inauguration and the enforcement of electronic transmission of election results to ensure transparent election outcomes, while urging electoral authorities, security agencies, and other stakeholders to make the forthcoming governorship election in Anambra youth-friendly and all-inclusive. The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps has deployed over 10,000 operatives to ensure adequate security during the forthcoming Anambra State governorship election, scheduled for November 8th. The Commandant General of the Corps, Professor Ahmed Audi, ordered the deployment, which includes tactical forces from the Corps' national headquarters in Abuja. The move, according to the NSCDC spokesperson, Afolabi Babawale, is part of efforts to make the Nigeria Police Force, which is the lead agency for the election security. He added that the Commandant General has addressed state commandants and heads of tactical squads, warning politicians and their supporters against any actions or statements capable of inciting violence before, during, or after the election. The spokesperson noted that the Corps, alongside other security agencies, will monitor the election process and provide protection for electoral materials and officials on duty. According to him, the operatives were drawn from the NSCDC National Headquarters Tactical Squad, Zone 13 in Awka, and state commands in Anambra, Edo, Kogi, Imo, Abia, Delta, Rivers, Enugu, Ebonyi, and Bayelsa. The Nigeria Police Force also announced plans to deploy 45,000 officers across Anambra State for the election. The force also stated that vigilante groups would not be allowed to operate during the exercise. The urgent need to restructure Nigeria's policing system and strengthen its capacity to handle internal security challenges without over-reliance on the military took center stage at the Senate during the screening of newly appointed service chiefs in Abuja. Appearing before lawmakers, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, former Chief of Army Staff and now Chief of Defense Staff Designate, emphasized that the military is being overstretched by ongoing operations against terrorism, insurgency, and banditry, a situation he warned could weaken overall effectiveness. He called for a collective approach to national security, urging better funding and modern warfare equipment to enhance Nigeria's defense and policing capabilities. Oluyede also stressed that lasting peace and stability depend on strong collaboration between civilian security agencies and the military.
Added to this is the need for us to improve maybe probably structure the police force, because most of the job that is being done by the army as we speak actually lies within the purview of the police. So it's important for the nation to empower the police, make it stronger, make it more formidable, so that they can do their job while we concentrate on defending Nigeria against external aggression. So when you aggregate all these points that I made, then I can tell you that my tenure as Chief of Army Staff has been quite challenging. But I can tell you that within the ambit of what we have and the resources made available to us, we're able to face some of the challenges. And I believe that things have improved tremendously, but we can do better. But in doing better, it requires a whole society approach. Everybody must be involved. I don't think it should be left only to the military to prosecute and face all these challenges. It's not going to work. It's important for all hands to be on deck to make Nigeria safer.
Welcoming the nominees, Senate President Godswill Akpabio said the screening fulfills the Senate's constitutional responsibility to ensure that only competent and patriotic officers lead the nation's armed forces. He described the process as crucial to the legislature's oversight role and to upholding discipline and professionalism within the military.
Like the Senate leaders pointed out, now that they are like the class prefects. By the way, I used to be a senior prefect in my college, in my days in secondary school. So I had other prefects under me. So today you are like the class prefect. You are like me when I was senior prefect. So, and we have earlier cleared you, and we have no doubt as to your capacity to deliver. Is it the view of the Senate that he'll be allowed to take a bow and watch as others speak to us? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay.
Also screened were Major General Wahidi Shaibu as Chief of Army Staff, Air Vice Marshal Kennedy Aneke as Chief of Air Staff, and Rear Admiral Idi Abbas as Chief of Naval Staff.
As the Chief of the Air Staff, if confirmed, sir, my duties are very clear, direct, and they are, and simple. They are to secure the lives of Nigerians, their liberties and aspirations through the instrument of air power in conjunction and synergy with both my colleagues in the military and the other security organizations. This is not merely a professional mandate, but a sacred trust between the Nigerian Air Force and the people we serve. Every decision I make, coming to the question of working with the Navy, any decision I make, every policy I craft, and every mission I authorize. Currently, we have Operation Safe Corridor operating in Burundi, whereby all the modalities have been in place to ensure effective delocalizations of those surrendered bandits. And what we provide for them as skill acquisition to make them viable as skilled members of the society. Now, integrating them into their various communities, that is not within our purview.
First question, the issue of de-radicalization. I totally agree with the Chief of Army Staff nominee's opinion. De-radicalizing the repentant criminals is a good way forward, but what of the moral burden? These are people that have killed, have maimed, and been integrated back into the society, to my mind, may remind relatives and family members of those that they have named to think in another.
Up ahead, US to resume nuclear weapons testing for the first time in 33 years. Russian drone and missile attack injures 13 in Zaporizhzhia, governor says. Details in a moment.
The way we see the world shapes the way we change it. Gender isn't just a checkbox, it's a lens, one that helps us understand the world more deeply and act more fairly. Gender Perspectives, a program for those ready to see more, do more, and be more. Designed to challenge assumptions, ignite conversations, and build inclusive solutions across every sector of society.
We are not, fighting the men. We are not saying we are equal in terms of rights. We're only asking they should recognize our existence.
Join us on Gender Perspectives, showing every Saturday by 4 p.m. Repeat every Wednesdays by 5 p.m. and Thursdays by 3 p.m. Change begins with perspective. Let's widen yours.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung met Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on Thursday, a day before the opening of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. The two leaders held talks at a hotel in downtown Gyeongju, North Gyeongsang Province, to discuss ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation. Lee and Carney discussed key issues, including defense, economy, and cultural exchanges, and are scheduled to hold luncheon after the meeting, Yonhap News Agency reported. The meeting comes as Canada launches a new submarine acquisition program worth about $60 trillion, with South Korean shipbuilders competing for the project, according to local media. Also, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi arrived in Busan to attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea. Takaichi, who hosted U.S. President Donald Trump in Tokyo earlier this week, is expected to hold the first meeting with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. Japan and China are making arrangements for Takaichi and President Xi Jinping to hold a bilateral meeting on Friday on the sidelines of the APEC meeting, Kyodo News reported. U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday ordered the U.S. military to immediately resume testing nuclear weapons for the first time in 33 years, minutes before beginning a high-stakes meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump made the surprise announcement on Truth Social while he was aboard on his Marine One helicopter, flying to meet Xi for a trade negotiating session in Busan, South Korea. He said he was instructing the Pentagon to test the U.S. nuclear arsenal on an equal basis with other nuclear powers. Trump's decision to restart nuclear weapons testing follows a rapid expansion by China of its nuclear stockpile in recent years, and came just after Russia announced what it called a successful test of a nuclear-powered and nuclear-capable cruise missile, as well as a nuclear-powered torpedo. The United States last tested a nuclear weapon in 1992. U.S. President Donald Trump held talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping at a South Korean air base on Thursday, with both leaders sounding optimistic about cooling trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. The talks in the southern port city of Busan, their first face-to-face meeting since 2019, marks the finale of Trump's whirlwind Asia trip, during which he also touted trade breakthroughs with South Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asian nations. As they sat down with their delegations to begin talks, Xi told Trump via a translator it was normal for the two leading economies of the world to have frictions now and then. Their meeting, taking place on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, lasted nearly 2 hours. After their talks, The two leaders shook hands at the entrance of the building where their discussions were held, before going into their cars and Trump heading off to the airport for his flight home. Taiwanese citizens expressed skepticism over the impact of the meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, held on Thursday on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea. Wang Yikai, a 37-year-old service industry worker, said Trump's unpredictability made it difficult to anticipate outcomes.
President Donald Trump is quite unpredictable. So even if he says something now, it's entirely possible that things could change again after the Trump-Xi meeting. That's why I think we should just take things as they come and focus on doing our part well. Personally, I don't think Taiwan is so significant that it would necessarily be used as a bargaining chip. Although, realistically speaking, it could happen. But if we are used as a bargaining chip, well, the truth is, Taiwan doesn't really have much choice in the matter.
A 70-year-old retiree, Mr. Koo, said he felt the meeting would have little bearing on the current dynamics between Taiwan and China.
The reality is that Taiwan and mainland China exist as separate entities. That's a fact. It's not something anyone can deny or change. I suppose each side has its own calculations, but ultimately, it won't make much of a difference. It's probably just talk. In reality, nothing will actually change.
Meanwhile, Trump, while speaking on board Air Force One, following his talks with Xi, said the topic of Taiwan never came up. China hopes the United States will abide by its commitment to a moratorium on nuclear testing and obligations under a test ban treaty, the Foreign Ministry said on Thursday. Responding to a query about U.S. President Donald Trump resuming nuclear weapons testing, Ministry spokesperson Joe Jiakun said China hopes the United States would uphold the global strategic balance and stability.
China hopes that the U.S. will earnestly abide by and respect its obligations under the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and its commitment to suspend nuclear testing, and take concrete actions to safeguard the international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation system and maintain global strategic balance and stability.
Trump had made the surprise announcement on Truth Social while he was aboard his Marine One helicopter, flying to meet Xi for a trade negotiating session in Busan, South Korea. He said he was instructing the Pentagon to test the U.S. nuclear arsenal on an equal basis with other nuclear powers. China on Thursday urged the group of 7 G7 nations to uphold market economy principles and stop undermining the international trade order, responding to its plan for an alliance on production of critical minerals meant to counter Chinese dominance of the sector. At a regular briefing on Thursday, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Joe Jiakun told reporters that China had standardized and improved its export control system in line with international practices.
China's efforts to standardize and improve its export control system are in line with international common practices. Our goal is to better maintain world peace and regional stability, and to fulfill international obligations such as non-proliferation. We urge the group of 7, G7, countries to abide by the principles of the market economy and international trade rules, stop using the rules of little cliques to disrupt the international economic and trade order, and work together to uphold the stable development of world economy.
Canada said they would focus on securing supplies of critical minerals when it hosts its group of 7 partners this week at a meeting of energy and environment ministers in Toronto. G7 countries, except Japan, are heavily or exclusively reliant on China for a range of materials from rare earth magnets to battery metals. G7 leaders launched a critical minerals action plan in June to diversify the production and supply. That's the news this hour. I am Uchenna Chimdi Olwoha. Thanks for watching.